Hello, Berkeley. How you doing? Are you guys awake? We got one more little session. You guys ready? Say yes. All right. I was asked backstage before I came out, Shore, how did you get your first name Shore, S-H-O-R-E? I got to share it with you. My mom is from right outside Berkeley here. I was a product of the 60s, and therefore I got the name Shore because I was conceived on the beach. So that's how I got my name. I always tell people I feel sorry for my brother Hot Tub. I really do. I feel so Brian, who you just met, was the best man at my wedding. He came out here without me knowing it. And I don't think he was planning on introducing me today. But did he do a great job? Yes or no? Thank you, Brian. He came out here, and at 10:02 yesterday morning, I was waiting in the Las Vegas airport to catch a flight here. And I was delayed at 10:02. I was already supposed to be on the way here. And I was delayed because Barack Obama was flying out of San Francisco or something like that. So we've got a couple extra hours in Las Vegas. And as I was sitting there, I was starting to go through this talk and really what I wanted to share and trying to really plug into what was going to be impactful in this talk. And I was practicing in the terminal, and I started to download. Does anybody have that time when you start to download information and you start to get it? And new things started coming. And in that moment, I had this thought that Brian is coming to San Francisco to see my talk. And I wrote it in my journal. Now, I don't see Brian that often, maybe every once or twice every couple of years. And so I just had this thought out of the blue. He never told me he was coming, and I wrote it in my journal. And then I get here, and yesterday I was here getting ready and practicing and all that stuff and meeting with a few people, and I got like 40 texts about, good luck on the TEDx talk, et cetera, et cetera. And a text from Brian came through, and I want to read it to you. And it was very interesting. And he said basically, Shore, I'm with you in spirit, brother. I know you're going to do great. You're going to share your message. It's helped thousands, and now it will help millions. I'm excited that I'm a part of your life. Thank you, Brian. And right there, having known that he was coming, I wrote a text back, but I did not send it. And I put it away, so it was in the written box, and I didn't know when I would see Brian, but I knew I would. So I end up getting a call from Renee, who invites me to have dinner. I go meet Renee, and I walk into the restaurant, and guess who's sitting there with Renee? Brian. And I walk up to Brian, he goes, and I don't look that surprised. Why not? Because I don't know he's coming. And I give him a hug. Thank you, buddy, for coming. Give Renee a hug. I sit down, and I take out my phone, and I hand him the phone, and I say, open up messages. He opens up messages. I say, open up Brian Milet. He opens up Brian Milet. I said, read what I wrote in the outbox that's not sent right now. And it said, see you shortly. Thank you for coming to San Fran to support me in living my mission to wake up the world. He looked at me and just about crapped his pants like he's doing right now. He said, how did you know? And that's exactly what I want to talk to you guys about today. I want you to understand that there's a lot going on out there in a bigger world that you could plug into. How many of you have heard this idea of consciousness over and over and over again while you've been here today? Say yes if you have. How many of you heard the idea of waking up? How many of you heard this idea? A man walks into a bank with a check. He gets a settlement check. It's a large check, the biggest check he's ever seen. And he wants to have the feeling of having that amount of cash in his hand. So he walks up to the teller, and he gives the teller the check, and he says, I'd like to cash this check. She says, no problem, sir. Just go ahead and endorse the check, and we'll give you the money. He said, well, I've never had a check this big. What if I endorse a check, give you the check, and then you take it away from me and don't give me the money? He said, well, sir, this is a bank. That's not the way it works. We're not going to take it. He goes, but I don't know. Can I just get the money and then I'll endorse it? He said, that's not the way it works. And they get in an argument, and then finally the woman says, listen, if you're not going to endorse the check, then you're going to have to leave. And so finally he leaves, gets kicked out of the bank, goes down to the next bank, goes through the same routine with the next teller at the next bank, goes to a third bank and finds a young teller there. He had just started a few weeks earlier, and he goes through the same thing. He said, sir, I just got out of training. They said the most important thing was you had to endorse the check. And he gets really frustrated. Instead of kicking him out of the bank, he reaches under his counter, and he pulls out a wiffle ball bat, and he smacks the guy in the head. He said, sign the dang check. And he signs the check, and he gets the money. And he walks out of the bank feeling very full of himself that he has the money. He walks down to the first teller to gloat a little bit. And he walks into the first bank, and he says to the first teller, look, I went down the street to another bank, and they gave me the money. He said, sir, that's great. I'm so happy they gave you the money, but I bet you they made you sign the check first. He said, well, yes, they did, but nobody ever explained it to me like that before. So most of us go through life fairly asleep, unfortunately. We go to the teller of life and we say, life, give me everything I want, but we're not really willing to put our name to it. We're not really willing to endorse our life the way we really want. And so in this process of waking up, it is the most important process I know of. Awareness always precedes any meaningful change. How many just heard Chip, right? Did he have a lot of awareness happening, yes or no? If he would have ignored it, could his life gone in a different way, yes or no? Absolutely, right? So awareness always precedes change. When you look in consciousness, I looked it up on Wikipedia, and the first two words that come up in consciousness that we've heard over and over and again today is the first one, consciousness is awareness. The second one is wakefulness. The Buddha, after he had his enlightenment experience, spent the last half of his life teaching. And as he taught others to have this connection, he had a student one day ask him, Buddha, are you a prophet? No, I'm not. Are you a saint? No, I'm not. Are you a sage? No, I'm not. Are you a mystic? No, I'm not. Are you an angel? No, I'm not. Buddha, are you God? No, I'm not. Buddha, what are you? And the Buddha looked at his student and said simply, I am awake. And so, as we go through life, part of us connecting to a higher meaning is continuing to wake up. I believe we all have an evolution we're going through. And if you don't decide to wake up, will life help you do it sometimes, yes or no? Right? Life will bring you pain. Life will bring you ways to wake up. I would rather do it and be proactive in my waking up rather than reactive. How many would like to be cause rather than effect? Say yes. Okay? So it would be nice to know the stages that we go through in waking up. I'm so passionate about waking up. When we started our company 15 months ago, our mantra in our company, what we all do in our company, our internal mantra, this is what we live by. This is not our mission. This is what the employees and leaders in our company live by, is to live and deliver awakening. Now, how many of you like to be involved in a company like that? Say yes or no. Yes. To live and deliver awakening. This is a powerful idea. Now, as we wake up, life starts to look different. But how many of us are just not even aware that we don't know that we're asleep? Is most of the world like that? Yes or no? Yeah, most of us don't know that we don't know. And so knowing is one of the first keys to waking up. So I'm going to give you a little metaphor, and it's based on universal laws, but it's the 4 stages of consciousness. And these 4 stages of consciousness help you to understand where you might be waking up. Now, are there laws at work in the physical world, yes or no? How many of you are totally happy to believe in the law of gravity? How many believe in the law of gravity? How many are totally happy to get out of bed this morning and not float away? Okay? Can anybody tell me where gravity comes from? By the way, does gravity care if you don't believe in it, yes or no? If I go and I stand on top of Zellerbach Auditorium and I stand on the roof and I get to the edge of the roof and I say, gravity doesn't exist, and I step off the roof, does gravity care? Does gravity still work? Yes. So there are laws, just like the physical laws we know of, that govern our entire lives. And it's like what we talked about with Marty earlier, that we're just skimming the surface. Only 2% of us is touching the surface. There's a 98% that's underneath that is governing everything in your life. And most of us are totally unaware of it. So as we hear Gopi talk about mindfulness and all these things, it's all how to tap in deeper and deeper and deeper into these laws and live with them. Now, these 4 areas have informed me in my life to help me navigate when I start to fall asleep. And they're contextual. And I have 13 different levels of these 4 big areas, but I'll just give you the 4 because they help to give you a big picture understanding. So the first area of consciousness that we get to is a stage that I would call to me. Now, to me means that life is happening to me, that I feel like I really don't have a say in it. It's very low conscious. It's like it's my parents' fault. It's my boss's fault. It's the economy's fault. It's the weather's fault. It's my genetics' fault. And everything I feel like is happening to me. Anybody feel like that ever? Okay, come on. Or do you know somebody who has felt like that ever? And by the way, these are contextual. So you may be in a to-me consciousness, let's say, in your relationships, but you may be in a different consciousness in your work. Does that make sense? So to me, life is happening to me. The second level of consciousness that we go to is, I'm going the wrong way there. Second level is we go to a level of consciousness that I would call by me. Now, by me is when you start to understand that you can do something in your life and get a different result. Is that an exciting time, yes or no? Like where you go, I can learn a skill, I can get some knowledge, I can do something and actually affect change in my life. Is that a pretty empowering moment for a lot of people? And all of a sudden you start to say, listen, and this is where willpower comes in. This is where effort comes in. This is where knowledge and learning comes in. This is where you start to look at things like the personal development world, and it's all around by me pretty much. I could do something, different result. Do something, different result. Very empowering. Is that very exciting? How many of you get really addicted to getting results when you start to figure this out? And you go, man, I can keep doing and getting a better result. Anybody been there? I know I have, and I know I am all the time. But as you start to get here and you start to do this, sometimes you'll start to move into my mic is a little messed up here. Sometimes you'll start to move into another area that I call through me. Now, through me is a much different state. It's almost like you're a conduit. It's almost like you are a voice of something else, like it's moving through you, and it's not that effortful. And by me, by the way, it feels like there's a lot of effort happening. How many follow this? And what happens in by me is you'll get results, you'll keep pushing, you'll get more results, but one of two things will generally happen over time. You'll get burnt out, which is what happened to me, because it was just achieve. Anybody been in that mode? Get another result. And for a while, those results feel really great, but after a while, they don't seem to have the luster anymore. Anybody know what I'm talking about? And they kind of go, do I just want another result? I mean, really? And so all of a sudden, you're either going to burn out or you're going to start to look for another way to plug in. And when you get to through me, it almost feels like you're plugged in. It literally feels like you're plugged into another realm. And things start to happen through me. The text, that's through me. How many follow that? All that was happening, plugged in, get the message. Plugged in, get the message. When about a year and a half ago, one of my clients that I helped with his speaking career came to me and said, I have to develop a website because I'm going to be on KTLA, the morning show, Channel 5. He said, I need you to help me develop a website of how to get people to follow up with the content I'm going to teach on the TV show. I said, come to Vegas, we'll work on it, we'll jam on it. I met him at Coffee, Bean, and Tea at 7:30 in the morning. And we started talking about this idea for about a half an hour, and all of a sudden, I had a through me experience. And I said, Nathan, hold on one second. I got my tea. I put it on the coffee table right there on the little table at the shop. And I started to download and started to type out what I was seeing was happening with this project. And I literally went into an altered state. You ever done that? Where like time disappeared. And at 2:30, I started typing at 8 in the morning. At 2:30, I feel this nudge on my shoulder, and Nathan looks at me like he goes, dude, do you have to pee or anything? He said, do you need food? What is going on? And I came back, and I had downloaded 80 pages of what this new company was going to be. And he said, what are you doing? I said, I really don't have any idea, but I think this is what it's about. And I said, we're going to give people the 7 areas of their life, the way they do their life. We're not going to fight technology. We're going to work with it. But we're going to do it and help wake them up. We're going to give them wisdom and knowledge and action plans and make it fun. We're going to do it in the area of relationships. We're going to do it in the area of business and career and health and wellness. But we're going to build it all, Nathan, on a foundation of people's soul needs. And he said, it looked like I hit him over the head with a wiffle bat at that moment. And he looked at me with these eyes and said, what'd you say? He said, I said, we're going to build it all on their soul needs first. Because then we help them build it on a house of rock instead of sand. He said, sure. And he just looked bewildered, and he said, sure. 3 years ago, before I met you, before I believed in God, before I had any idea that I'd be doing anything like this, he said, 3 years ago in Melbourne, Australia, which is where he's from, I woke up in the middle of the night with a directive. It was like a message to get the domain name soulneeds.com. And he said, I woke up that night at 2 in the morning and got the domain name. And I said, I guess we're in business, buddy. And listen, here's what happens. When you start to plug into Through Me, all the things that you need in your life when you're really plugged in start to show up. The people, the resources, the money, the talent, the ideas, everything you need starts to show up and manifest. And it seems almost too good to be true sometimes. And when you start to go, wow, all this stuff's coming, amazing, and you're not planning, you're not willing, you're not goaling it to happen, and it starts to show up, you'd have this moment where you go, this is too good to be true. And right when you do that, guess what happens? You cut off the flow. And so that thing with Nathan, soulneeds.com, boom. Pay attention. Here's what's happening when you're plugged in. When you're plugged in, a door is opening. And it's saying, step through me. The door opens and it says, step through me. Now, here's the problem. You can't see what's on the other side of the door. So it's a little scary for people who want to know. But the voice, the nudge, the feeling is saying, step through me. And when the door opens and you really do step through, what will happen is that door will close behind you and another door will open. And it will say the same thing, step through me. And then here's what happens. You will not end up where you planned. That is the promise. You will not end up where you set your goals. You will not end up where you envision your life if you follow that path. That I promise you. But here's the second promise I promise you. That you will end up somewhere far better than you would have ever planned. Because you're being led in the direction of your highest good. You're being led in the direction of your most awake state of where you're supposed to play. How many of you believe on some level that you have something important to do on this time around while you're on earth? Say yes. And that door opens, you step through. Now, the last stage here, which I'm not going to talk about too much, I call as me. Through me still has some ego connected to it. Means I am separate from everyone else, but it's working through me. When you move into as me, and I've had a handful of experiences where I've had this experience, where there literally was no separation. Does that make sense? There literally was no difference between my brother, my sister, and me, or anything. And you get, in that moment, you get the cosmic joke. How many follow this? And literally in science, they're proving that we all are connected, that we're all symbiotic, that we're all one. And the golden rule that runs through every great mystic tradition is do unto others as you'd have do unto you, because as you do unto others, you literally do to yourself. How many does this make sense? As me, now let me ask you a question. If we're to talk about these four things, what do you need to give up to move from to me to by me? What do you need to give up? You need to give up blame. Does that make sense? If you don't want to be a victim anymore, you have to give up blame. You have to take spiritual responsibility for your life, every part of it. And as long as you hold on to blame, you'll stay stuck in parts of to me. How many follow this? What do you have to give up to go from by me to through me? You have to give up any sense of control. Now, how many of you like control? How many of you like knowing what the outcome is going to be, and you will do everything to manipulate the world to fit your model? Does that make sense? This is a big one, especially for achievers, because achievers want to freaking know. They don't want to leave it up to some airy-fairy thing some guy talked about on stage. You know what I'm talking about? So to move from through me to as me, you have to give up any sense of separation. Now, that is a tough one to do because it's really more, through as Gopi talked about, practice and continuous ritual. And that's where I think you bridge that gap. So there's some big discipline that happens there. So as I finish this talk, and I really appreciate you having me here, there's a quote I've been saying at the end of my talks for about the last 15 years. And it's a pretty well-known quote by Gandhi. And Gandhi says, "You must be the change you wish to see in the world." Now, I've been saying that quote because I really believe that it means you live what change you want to see. You become the example. And a year ago, I had a gentleman come up to me, a beautiful Indian man. He was Sikh, and he had a turban on, and he was really a profound soul. And he came up to me and he said, "You know, you're saying the quote wrong." And we're like, "I've been saying that for 15 years. What do you mean?" And he says, "It's not you must be the change you wish to see in the world. Literally translated, it's you must become the change you wish to see in the world." And I love this so much more because it is always a process in life of becoming. You're never there. So thank you, TEDx, for becoming what you are. Appreciate you very much. God bless, and we'll have a good one. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.